Members, no further amendments. The chair recognizes Representative Howard to speak in opposition to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. We do have an opportunity now to make some closing statements, and I know there are a few of us that want to do that. I know that some of you want to vote and move on. This is an extremely important issue. I think everyone would agree with that no matter what side of the issue you're on. So I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you for a moment here to share some comments about this particular bill. And I just want to start by saying that this has really been a false narrative, in my opinion, about arguing the inarguable. There are none of us in here that do not view what we're talking about to be about life. And any of us that look at science to dictate what we believe, that we rely upon facts and data, we all understand that life begins with fertilization, that cells come together, and biologically that's life. This is not a question about when life begins. We all understand that, I think. It's a question about the decisions that have to be made along the way, and there are no easy answers here. We are trying to figure out how to work together as a community to keep our families safe and healthy, and to make difficult choices that come about in life. Life is not that easy for a lot of people. No one is pro-abortion. I have found it very uncomfortable to be labeled a baby killer and somebody who's pro-abortion by the people who come here and think they know who we are and know what we really believe. I don't think there's anybody in here that would be considered pro-abortion. But this bill is not the answer. It's irresponsible, in my opinion, to create public policy that impacts the doctor-patient relationship while disregarding the concerns of the medical and hospital professional associations and their contribution to trying to help craft something that makes sense medically. The Texas Hospital Association testified in opposition to HB2. The Congress of Obstetricians and Gynecologists had this to say. Mr. Speaker, do you mind? It's not much longer, folks. These are important things we're trying to share here. I would appreciate it just for a moment. The American Congress of Obstetricians and Gynecologists said, "These bills set a dangerous precedent of a legislature telling doctors how to practice medicine and how to care for individual patients. ACOG opposes legislative interference and strongly believes that the decision about medical care must be based on scientific evidence and made by licensed medical professionals, not the state or the federal government. These bills are not based on sound science, despite our efforts to provide the legislature with the best available medical knowledge," end quote. And from the Texas Medical Association, their letter said, quote, "Our concerns are with legislative intrusion into the patient-physician relationship and the details of the practice of medicine, and with a legislatively created standard of care. TMA is concerned this legislation sets a dangerous precedent of the legislature prescribing the details of the practice of medicine. These are determinations to be made by the medical community and science, not by the legislature," end quote. I really can't believe this. I cannot believe that we had this kind of contribution to what was going on here. I know that people in here really trust the medical community to make medical decisions, and yet we are being told by them that that's not what we're doing, and we're doing it anyway? We're doing it anyway? Rather than seriously working with medical professionals and experts to authentically address improvements in the delivery of women's health care, this bill disingenuously, paternalistically, and with feigned concern instead panders to personal and political ideology. We are better than that. We do not need to be doing it this way. The Centers for Disease Control lists family planning as one of the greatest public health events of the past century. Family planning allowed us to decrease maternal deaths, decrease infant deaths, increase a woman's control over her own life. This was hugely significant, hugely significant. What we're talking about here is going backwards. When we know we can do this together. We did it in the regular session, the so-called kumbaya session we just had. We came together and we actually increased funding for family planning. We actually worked together and did something productive and good that will make a difference. We can do that. This bill does not do that. This bill does not come together with the best science, with the best minds in this room, to come up with something that's really in the best interests of the citizens of Texas. We can reduce abortion. This bill is not the way to do it. We need to work together. We need to work with the medical community, and we can do that. We have done it. We can do it. I'm so sorry about this bill. It's embarrassing to me that we're doing this. We really are better than this, folks. I am so disappointed that this is where we are. Obviously, I'm in opposition to this. Please, folks, let's get past this and find ways to work together with good public health policy. Please, we can make a difference.
Chair recognizes Representative Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Our visitors in the gallery, I want to thank you for your courteous attention today. Y'all been wonderful. We've got a few more of these speeches left to do, for and against. The same rules. We'd like for you to be as respectful and courteous as you have been. If not, then we're going to have to ask you to leave. But y'all been really great, and thank you for coming to your house. It's been a long day for all of us. Some of you have been here all day. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. The arguments that have shaped the debate around this bill and its predecessors have been reduced to an unfortunate binary. You are either pro-life and anti-woman or pro-woman and anti-life. These labels are unworkable at best and demeaning at worst. Members have been categorized for individual votes we take in this session, from tax cuts to education funding. We have been given our own sour label by the opposing side. The labels surrounding this bill, however, hit to the core. No woman in this chamber vies to be categorized as anti-life, and no man in this chamber intends to be branded as anti-woman. I have consulted my faith and searched my conscience countless times on this issue before us. I believe the gift of life is sacred. I value life. I am for life. The sanctity of preserving and improving an individual's full life is expected in our common humanity, and it is required by our duties as members of this House. I oppose HB2 because I believe this bill and others like it do not respect the sanctity of full life. When will we get serious about policies that respect full life? Let's look at what this body, what this institution, and how it's treated women. First, we had the Right to Know Act passed in 2003, the 78th session, which did little to provide women with adequate health education. Then we passed the sonogram bill. I know we all remember that from last session, that mandated intrusive procedures that invaded and degraded women's private lives. We inappropriately inserted government not only into the doctor-patient relationship, but we also inserted government into a woman's uterus. In that same legislative session, this body cut family planning funding for providers by 2/3. What else do you want from us? What else do you want to take from us? You've all listened to the detrimental consequences to a woman's health if HB2 becomes law. We are being asked to vote on a bill that does not take the whole health and safety of a woman with an unsafe pregnancy into account. We are being asked to vote on a bill that does not consider circumstances beyond a woman's control, such as pregnancy as a result of rape or incest. Each of these pitfalls harms a human life. And y'all have also seen the statistics of how many health centers will close as a result of this bill's intentionally burdensome regulations. These regulations will reduce the number of health clinics in our state to a dangerously low level. Texas women will have to go to unbearable lengths to receive wellness exams, prevention screenings for breast cancer, cervical cancer, sexually transmitted diseases. It will practically be impossible for women, and yes, for men, in rural areas to receive disease treatment. Proponents are so fixated on this one medical procedure that, by the way, happens to be legal, that they are willing to jeopardize the loss of other services that contribute to the health and well-being of a woman's full life. While I have no doubt that those of you who support this bill have personal convictions about its intent, we cannot let personal convictions intentionally ruin the lives of those tirelessly preserving full human life. The vote we take today is a reflection of how we perceive full life. I cannot vote for a bill that will harm the health and safety and welfare of any individual. HB2 unprecedented methods do this in a very unexceptional way. Today, I stand for full life and will vote no on HB2. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Menendez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise to speak against House Bill 2 with all due respect and appreciation for the personal beliefs of each and every one of you. I mention personal beliefs because I do believe that much of what HB2 is really about. I've heard time and time again in committee that this bill is about protecting a woman's health or minimizing fetal pain. But today, after hours of amendments that I believe would have done a lot to help a woman's health, I don't feel convinced that HB2 is really about that. I'm not even sure it's about reducing the number of unwanted or unplanned pregnancies among young women, or equally important, addressing the needs of a child after birth. It seems that it may be simply intended, no matter what the denials and the repeated references to improving women's health, to further and nearly totally restrict abortions in Texas. And you know something? If we could find a way that we could come to the day that Texas would not need any abortion procedures, I would work for that day with you. And that's what I believe this is about, personal beliefs and morals. And members, I don't believe that we've been sent here to impose our personal beliefs on the citizens we represent. I believe that we're here, however, in the words we each spoke in this chamber 7 months and 1 day ago, when we swore an oath, where we stated, to the best of my ability, to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the state. So help me God. This bill is about whether or not we are committed to upholding that oath. This bill is about whether or not we will in fact preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States. Members, I personally am not in favor of an abortion. I don't think anybody is. But I think our personal views are not what's at issue here today. What I'm in favor of, what I believe in, what we all swore to do is to protect the constitutionally given right of a woman with her family and her God to make a choice. I also favor many of the safeguards and the laws that we have passed in recent sessions that do increase access and do provide other health-related information. See, but members, this is about access. As another matter of fact, for the women's right to choose. But HB2 violates that constitutionally given right that hasn't wavered for over 40 years by making access to those health centers as difficult as possible and for taking a large part of the population of lower income women and making it virtually impossible. The undue burdens on people living along the border in El Paso, I believe, will go on to be the downfall of this bill. As we know, thousands of citizens came to their capital and have been here to express their views on this subject, and the record will show that 1,354 signed up in favor and 2,183 were opposed, or 62%. What I found troublesome, however, was that those who were opposed spoke strongest in the favor of the right of a woman to choose and keeping government out of her body. And those who spoke in favor, primarily it was about their personal beliefs. But very little, sometimes it was actually stated that the rights of the mother weren't as important as the right of the unborn. The author has repeatedly refused to accept or even debate reasonable amendments to House Bill 2, and earlier without SB 5. And that, to me, speaks volumes of the intent of this bill. Many of the amendments that were presented today were intended to promote better health care and make this bill constitutionally sound. Yet, they were just discarded. Members, I refrain from challenging legislation on anything but factual merit, and in this case, one fact stands out glaringly. A vote for this bill is to refute the oath of office that we all share and continue to be bound to. Unless and until the Constitution and the laws of the United States are amended on this matter, supporting HB2 is an admission of a failure to keep a promise that we made, an oath we made. And I'll close with this. The Supreme Court said in the seminal case of Casey versus Planned Parenthood, when they spoke to their own decision, men and women of good conscience can disagree, and we suppose some always shall disagree about the profound moral and spiritual implications of terminating a pregnancy, even in its earliest stage. Some of us, as individuals, find abortion offensive to our most basic principles of morality. but that cannot control our decision. Our obligation is to define the liberty of all and not to mandate our own moral code. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members, for your attention.